Hey UConn Nation, it's KK Arnold here. If you're looking for the latest UConn women's basketball content, go subscribe to Listen Up to Phil and Ryan. Go Huskies!
Ronnie, have you ever heard of cake pops?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
You have. All right. So I went down, shout out to Austin on this one. We visited DC yesterday. Great trip. Awesome sightseeing. Pretty much lived around this area for almost 30 years, and believe it or not, never actually been to DC to tour around, see the monument and stuff like that. But they have this shop down there baked by, I think it's Baked by Yale, and anyway, they sell cake pops, cake tops, cake pops. They're on a stick, and I tell you, I saved you one. So, but I have a feeling, man, this year coming up, as far as the UConn Huskies are concerned, man, you and I might be eating a lot of cake pops post game, watching press conferences, watching Gino, and especially watching this performance of this next UConn Husky that we're getting ready to talk about a Monday morning. Thank you, Ryan, for joining me as always. As we put the spotlight on Ryan, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you told me Ashlynn Shade, the last freshman that we are going
Yeah.
to go over before we start to move deeper into this series and into the roster and even some bigger names. I'm sure you know who's last. Everybody watching this, Ryan, including Ryan. I actually told you, Ryan, no, she's not a senior yet, but hey, Ryan, we're going to save her for last anyway. But anyhow, Ashlynn Shade, Ryan, I'll make this short and sweet, and we're like the cake pops, right? Short and sweet. And we're going to send it right over to you. Ashlynn Shade, what do you have on her? I think, no disrespect for all the other freshmen that we have put the spotlight on. I think that talk about a lot of hype surrounding this name, Ashlynn Shade. Any other freshmen or have more than enough potential to break out, but I like this one a lot. And I'll be honest with you now, I think out of all these freshmen that we have put the spotlight on so far, can't wait to see what you have to say. I think that this might be the one, even if she doesn't get a lot of playing time this season coming up. This might very well be the one to keep your eye on.
Yeah, there was a really good article that came out on her just a couple of days ago, and I was reading up on it, trying to learn about each of these freshmen and trying to learn a little bit about their play styles and how they're doing in these summer workouts as the workouts keep going along during the summer and keep on practicing more and more.
Mm-hmm.
But the article talked a little bit about just Ashlyn getting used to playing with her teammates, a transition. Coaches had a couple of good things to say about her, but I want to start out with the quote that Ashlyn said. She said, quote, "It's becoming more realistic, like this is like my life for the next 4 years." But I love it. I mean, I just think it's so cool. I get to wake up in Stores, Connecticut every day and work out with these girls. And I think not only for Ashlyn, but all the other freshmen as well. I think it's kind of just like she said, it's so cool. It must be so cool to finally live out your childhood dream for a lot of these girls and wake up every morning on the campus there at Stores, and you realize you get to practice and work out every day with these girls, and some of them you've been watching throughout your playing time at some of the high schools. So I think with a lot of these freshmen, they're starting to get used to the normal UConn life. But I think I read in the article as well. Ashlyn had to transfer from her high school in Noblesville and her public school to another school in LA. And she talked about how close she is with a lot of her family as well. Very family oriented person. So I think some of the transition period has been a little bit easier for Ashlyn since she experienced some of that before she came into UConn. So I think that has been a little bit easier. I think some of these freshmen kind of struggle a little bit with the transition period from high school to college, especially coming to UConn with all these high expectations. But I think Ashlyn's going to handle that pretty well. And finally, I think some of these coaches, more specifically Chris Daly, had a couple good things to say about her. Quote, she plays very, very hard. Daly also said that there's never going to be a question on how hard she goes. So we like to see players with good work ethic and know that they're going to bring it all the time. Comparing her to Shay Ralph, that was Ariema that said that. So I think Ashlynn Shade's a really exciting freshman, just like all the other ones. But Ashlynn Shade, just like you said, seems to be, potentially a little bit more exciting. So I definitely can't wait to watch her this season.
Other than the highlights that I'm seeing, I mean, she has a knack for, again, like a lot of these players that we talked about, a knack for getting rebounds so quickly. She can jump in front of the opposing player and get the steals, bring it up the court east and west so quickly and turn the ball game around within a matter of seconds. And I think that's a lot of how Gino coaches, a fast, physical. We talk about physical and size, but quickness. Basketball is, because we see it now with the not so much smaller women in the game, but quickness, the speed, Ryan. You and I have talked about it. Other than that, just to put the focus outside of the game for a second, I love that you bring up that article, and shout out to Daniel Connolly again. Thank you to him for bringing this article out on the UConn blog just about 3 days ago, I believe. Shade loving her new life at UConn. And I love the fact it brought up how family oriented as she is.
Yeah.
And I never realized she had a twin brother. So I think, when you factor in all this is definitely you're not only getting a great player on the court, but off the court as well. And I think that's even more of a positive outlook when you talk about, fans that, I mean, for crying out loud, Ryan, you're talking about, and that's a beautiful thing about it. You and I talk about it. What do you make of this when you have, we never really get into this discussion, when you have women out there, men, women, whoever, Ryan, that are UConn fans specifically looking up, you have fans that are 40, 50, 60 years old and maybe even older that are looking up to you, and you're what, 21, 22 years old. I mean, it's I don't know. I don't know, have any words for that one.
Yeah, I mean, even though, all these women on this team are obviously such talented basketball players, I think Gino and the rest of these coaches and all the scouts really look for their personality both on and off the
Mm-hmm.
court. And I think that's a really important part of it that we don't really get to talk about a lot. And yeah, I think that's probably one of the most important things. And I talk about chemistry a lot, and I think everybody's personality kind of, molds into that. And that's why I think all the women on this team get along so well, is, their personality, both on and off the court. They can share all these memories, and, they're all really good people. So I think that goes a long way with the game of basketball. And something else I saw in the article as well, I wanted to bring up was that Ashlynn, she said she doesn't really fit a description, and she's open to really playing any position. Gino also described her as a positionless, really good basketball player. So even though I think she feels more comfortable in the backcourt as a guard, maybe if she has a little bit of a growth spurt, we can potentially see her as a forward, or maybe even as the five position, probably most likely maybe a forward even somewhere down along the road, but definitely just something to get a little bit more excited about Ashlynn Shade.
5-star recruit Ashlynn Shade. Again, welcome to UConn, Ryan. We can't wait, and we all know that you can't wait. How about some comments, Ryan, before we head on out on this Monday morning on Listen Up? This is from Huskies guard Cadence Samuels, the video that we brought out just a few days ago. Thank you, everyone, for coming through again. We know it's tough, Ryan. We get it. As far as keeping up to date, for some people it's easy, some people it's not. A lot of names we haven't forgot about you all. A lot of names, Ryan, that we haven't heard from in a while. We hope you all are doing just fine. And we get it. During the off season, maybe you kind of focus on, not basketball, huh? But it's hard for us to, Ryan, get our minds off of basketball. We love the topic. We love the sport and we love talking about it, and we love you guys. How about Bon Riley? I like all the freshmen coming in, but I still think Amari. Oh, this is going to be interesting. Again, the focus right now is on Ashlynn Shade, Ryan, but it's going to be interesting when we put the spotlight on this UConn Husky. But I still think Amari is going to have the hardest time getting playing time this year.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think, we kind of try to discuss playing time during the off season. And like we said before, it's almost impossible to kind of predict other than the starting five once it's announced. And we can usually nail down the starting five pretty well. But when you get into all the bench players and, that sort of thing, it's really hard to tell how Gino is going to sort everything out, especially this year with all the depth and also last year as well. But of course, we had all the injuries. So I think it kind of made it easier in a sense that, when you only have 6 or 7 players to spread the minutes around. But generally, that's what Gino does is only plays about 7 players. So it's going to be interesting to see a lot of these girls, how the minutes get distributed off the bench. But I think with Amari, it's it's definitely gonna be interesting. There's she's definitely the most interesting player on this roster. I think like we said before, she definitely has the talent, but I think there's a lot of things that she can improve on. And like they just said, it's gonna be interesting to see how many minutes that she gets and if she can put in the work to earn those minutes.
We love questions, and that's what Lindsay Matthews did. She commented and she was actually asking questions for you and I. So again, we definitely appreciate that. Gives a little bit brings up a little bit more of the heat, brings up a little bit more heat, if you will, right, Ryan, for the comments sections of the videos. During an interview at a golf tournament yesterday, I'm glad she brought this up, Ryan, because I wanted to tell you about this. Gino said that some players come to UConn injured and don't mention it, or they come with something UConn knows about and can deal with. And if my memory is correct, he said that every new player comes with something that wasn't dealt with during their high school career. What are your thoughts about that? Believing what Gino said, what do you think?
Well, I definitely believe it for sure, and I think that's also a big part of it that doesn't get talked about at all is the behind the scenes that we don't ever see or hear about, and that the media doesn't really cover, and the team obviously doesn't cover it. But I think there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that we wish that we all knew about, but unfortunately, that's not the way it goes, and there's a lot of things that get that doesn't get attention and kind of just stays in the dark. But it's definitely an interesting topic, and I think I think that just makes it more challenging to kind of understand how the whole process works with kind of recruiting these players and how the coaches go about just coaching them in general. And I think there's a lot of things beyond just the game of basketball that get talked about and worked on. And I think it's important for all these players to, talk about those other things besides basketball behind the scenes with these coaches and the other players.
All right, how about one more? Michael Germain. Thank you, Michael Germain, for coming through. I like your outlook for our freshman teammates, and the women do need a lower level structure to bring up, but the WNBA needs to increase their bench size every year or to add 1 or 2 till they are 16 at least. I'm looking for a 14-year-old playing AAU when she's 6'2".
Yeah, I think well that's something we didn't mention as well is the bench spots. There's not a lot of roster spots, but yeah, there's not many players that get the opportunity to just be on the bench and just kind of learn with the team. And even though there is A teams and USA teams, U16, 17, 18 teams like that. there's just not a lot of, there's not much after that. It's just college, professional. And if you don't, obviously don't make the professional, you can't go back down, obviously. So, like we said, there's definitely a lot of work to do. There's a lot of things that can be implemented and improved down the road. And we hope eventually we get to see some positive change for sure.
A good Monday morning to you, Ryan. I will see you later this week. And if you had to correct me if I'm mistaken, I think that I saw not too long ago a Gino interview, a video, and he was mentioning in the title, I did not actually open it up to watch it, but in the title it said mention about Paige Beckers, and most likely she's looking better than ever, performing in practice, I believe, something along them lines. But again, I'll just keep my mouth closed right there because, hey, we already know there's some people, believe it or not, Ryan, that's actually dropped off of even believing of the great things that are to come, right? And we already know. I think you believe it too. I believe it. I never dropped off of the train, right? But I'm looking forward to, and I won't even say her name anymore. You already know what I mean. I'm looking forward to some of the best basketball that we've ever seen out of her, right? But we'll leave it at that. I know you're thinking in your mind right now, just stop while you're ahead. But all right, because we already knew what happened around this time last year. So Ryan, that's it. Go ahead and hit the stop button while we're ahead. Phil and Ryan on Listen Up.